If you say yes, she said, her voice calm but firm, we are getting married tomorrow. I'll give you my hand, and something I've been hiding. My name is Ethan Cross, and 3 months ago, I stood alone in an empty apartment, watching my wife walk out without looking back. She didn't cry. Not even a little. I did, but not in front of her. I waited until the door shut, until the sound of her heels faded down the hallway, until the silence swallowed everything we used to be. Then it hit me all at once. Her name was Clara Hayes, and for nearly a year of our marriage, she had been living a second life. I didn't discover it through a dramatic confession, or some anonymous message. It was something smaller. Something almost laughable. A shared Google Calendar. She forgot to log out of my laptop. That was it. At first it looked normal, meetings, deadlines, appointments. But then I noticed the pattern. Weekend blocks labeled client outreach. Same times. Same locations. Repeating like clockwork. I told myself I was overthinking. That it was just work. That I was being paranoid. But deep down, I already knew. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I watched. I waited. Every new entry felt like another nail sealing something shut inside me. By the time I finally brought it up, I wasn't even angry anymore. Just empty. She didn't deny it. She just looked at me calmly and said, I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Like there was a better way. The divorce was fast. Quiet. Almost too easy. No shouting, no scenes, no attempts to fix anything. Just paperwork, signatures, and the slow realization that whatever we had was already gone long before we admitted it. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The day after everything was finalized, someone knocked on my door. I almost ignored it. I wasn't in the mood for people, sympathy, or anything that reminded me of what I had just lost. But something made me open it. And that's when I saw her. Her name was Lena Voss. She stood there like she belonged, composed, still, her expression unreadable. Not nervous. Not angry. Just certain. I'm sorry to show up like this, she said. But I think we have a problem in common. I frowned, confused. I don't think you do, she cut in softly. Your ex-wife. Clara Hayes. My chest tightened instantly. Yeah? What about her? She held my gaze without blinking. She's involved with my husband. The words landed like a punch I didn't see coming. For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to process what she'd said. My mind replayed everything, calendar entries, late nights, her distant tone, and suddenly, it all clicked into place in a way that made my stomach turn. Who is he? I asked slowly. Lena's expression didn't change. His name is Victor Hale, she said. And he's been lying to both of us. She paused, studying my reaction carefully. But that's not even the worst part. Lena didn't wait for me to respond. She stepped inside my apartment like she already knew I wouldn't stop her. I should have said something. Asked her to leave. Closed the door and walked away from whatever this was. But I didn't. Because something in her voice told me this wasn't just about betrayal. It was bigger. I shut the door behind her. What do you mean? I asked. She turned slowly, her eyes scanning the room as if measuring the life I used to have. I mean, she said, your ex-wife didn't just leave you for my husband. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document. She was working with him. I let out a dry laugh. That doesn't make any sense. It will, Lena replied calmly. Give it a minute. She handed me the paper. It was a printed screenshot, bank transfers. Multiple transactions. Different accounts. Large amounts. My name was on some of them. My stomach dropped. "I've never seen this before," I said quickly. "I didn't, this isn't, I know," she said, cutting me off. "You're not supposed to." I looked up at her. "Then how is my name on it?" "Because," she said, her voice turning colder, "you're useful." The word hit harder than I expected. "Victor doesn't just cheat," she continued. "He builds people into his system. He finds the right targets, people with clean records, stable identities, and then he uses them." "For what?" I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. "For everything." The room suddenly felt smaller. "He creates financial trails," she went on. "Shell accounts, fake transactions, investment fronts. And when everything collapses, it doesn't fall on him. It falls on me," I said quietly. She nodded once. Silence filled the space between us. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to make sense of it. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I was you," Lena said. That made me stop. "What?" She took a slow breath. "I trusted him. I believed everything he told me. I signed things without asking questions. I defended him when people raised doubts." Her jaw tightened slightly. "And by the time I realized what he was really doing, I was already part of it." I studied her face. There was no panic there. No regret, even. Just clarity. "So what changed?" I asked. She held my gaze. "I stopped playing the role he wrote for me." There was something unsettling about the way she said it, like she had already crossed a line I hadn't even seen yet. "And now?" I asked. "Now," she reached back into her bag and pulled out a document that made my breath catch. A marriage license. Already filled out. Already signed, by her. All it needed was me. "I don't understand," I said. "You will," Lena replied. "After the ceremony." I stared at her like she'd just lost her mind. "You want me to marry you? Tomorrow?" "Yes." "Why?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping just enough to feel dangerous. "Because if you say yes," she said, "I can show you exactly how deep this goes." I shook my head, trying to pull myself back into reality. "And if I say no?" For the first time, something almost like a smile touched her lips. "Then you walk away," she said. "And eventually, everything they've built using your name will come crashing down on you." The room went quiet again. I looked at the license. Then at her. This wasn't normal. None of this was. But somehow, it felt real. I should have said no. That's the part that still echoes in my head, the moment where everything could have ended before it even began. I could have laughed, handed her back the paper, and shut the door on Lena Voss and whatever dangerous game she was playing. But I didn't. Because somewhere between the bank statements, the calm certainty in her voice, and the quiet threat of my name being tied to something I didn't understand, I realized I was already in it. "Tomorrow?" I asked again, my voice lower now. Lena nodded. "Tomorrow. No guests. No explanation. Just signatures," she added. I let out a slow breath. "And after that?" Her eyes held mine. "After that, I show you everything." There was a long silence. I looked around my apartment, the empty shelves, the half-packed boxes, the ghost of a life that didn't exist anymore. Clara had taken more than just her things when she left. She'd taken certainty with her. And now, standing in front of me, was something else entirely. Not comfort. Not closure. Control. Fine, I said finally. I'll do it. Lena didn't smile. She just nodded, like she had already expected that answer. Be ready at 9 a.m., she said. I'll pick you up. And just like that, she turned and walked out. The next morning didn't feel real. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw fragments, Clara's calm face, the transactions with my name on them, Lena's steady voice saying you're useful. By the time I got dressed, it felt less like I was making a decision, and more like I was following through on something that had already been decided. At exactly 9 o'clock, a car pulled up outside. Black. Clean. Unremarkable. Lena stepped out, wearing a navy coat. No dress. No ceremony look. Just sharp, simple, deliberate. Ready? She asked. No, I admitted. Good, she said. That means you're thinking. The drive was quiet. No music. No small talk. Just the low hum of the engine and the sound of my thoughts getting louder with every passing minute. We stopped in front of a small chapel tucked between two office buildings. If you weren't looking for it, you'd miss it completely. This is it? I asked. Yes. That's it. I repeated. Lena glanced at me. Did you want flowers? I didn't answer. Inside, it was even more minimal. Dim lighting. A single officiant waiting near the front. No decorations. No guests. No witnesses beyond the ones required. It felt less like a wedding, and more like a transaction. We walked up together, but there was distance between us. Not physical, something else. Something intentional. Names, the officiant asked. Lena Voss, she said. I hesitated for half a second. Then, Ethan Cross. The rest happened quickly. No vows. No promises. Just paperwork. Sign here. Initial there. My hand paused slightly when I saw it, marriage certificate. This was real. Before I could think too much about it, Lena signed her part, then slid the paper toward me. I looked at her once. She gave a small nod. I signed. And just like that, it was done. No applause. No music. Just silence. As we stepped back outside, the air felt colder than before. I turned to her, still trying to process what had just happened. So, I said slowly, what now? Lena looked at me, not cold, not warm. Focused. Now, she said, I show you what your ex-wife and my husband have been hiding. And for the first time since I met her, I felt like I was about to step into something I couldn't walk back from now. Lena said, I show you what your ex-wife and my husband have been hiding. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself. You mean my wife? She shook her head slightly. No, she corrected. Our shared problem. There was something deliberate in the way she said it, like she was reshaping the situation in real time, turning it into something bigger than just betrayal. We got back into the car. This time, the silence felt different. Heavier. Like whatever came next wasn't just information, it was proof. Lena drove us downtown, weaving through early traffic before turning into a narrow side street lined with old brick buildings. Nothing about the area stood out. No signs. No activity. Just quiet. She parked in front of a storage facility. This is it? I asked. She nodded. This is where the truth starts. We stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of dust and metal. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead as we walked down a long corridor of identical doors. Lena stopped at one of them, reached into her coat pocket, and pulled out a key. She didn't look at me when she spoke. Once we open this, she said, there's no going back to not knowing. I swallowed. I think we are already past that. A small pause. Then she unlocked the door. Inside, it was exactly what you'd expect, boxes, stacked neatly, labeled with numbers instead of names. But something about it felt wrong. Too organized. Too intentional. Lena stepped in first, flipping on a single overhead light. It cast sharp shadows across the room. "Close the door," she said. I did. She moved toward one of the metal tables and pulled a box onto it. No hesitation. No build-up. Just action. "You need to see this piece by piece," she said. She opened the first box. Inside were files. Dozens of them. Bank statements. Passport copies. Printed emails. Photographs. "Start here," she said, sliding a folder toward me. My hands felt heavier than usual as I opened it. The first thing I saw was my name. Not just once. Repeated. Accounts I didn't recognize. Transactions I didn't authorize. Signatures that looked like mine, but weren't. "What is this?" I asked, my voice tightening. "Your identity," Lena said calmly. "Or at least, the version they've been using." I flipped through the pages faster now, my pulse rising. "This doesn't make sense. I never signed any of this." "I know," she replied. "Then how they built it," she said. Slowly. Carefully. Using pieces of you. I looked up at her. Pieces. She pulled another file from the box and laid it next to mine. "This is one of the others." I glanced down. A different name. A different face. Same pattern. Another victim. I asked. Lena nodded. "One of 3. She opened 2 more files and spread them across the table. "All recently married," she said. "All suddenly alone." A chill ran through me. It was like looking at a pattern from above, a web connecting people who had no idea they were part of the same trap. "Victor isn't just cheating," Lena continued. "He's running a system." I stared at the files, trying to process it. "He finds people at the right moment," she said. "Emotionally vulnerable. Distracted. Trusting." My jaw tightened. "Like me." Her eyes met mine. "Yes." Silence filled the room for a moment. Then she crossed her arms slightly. "He doesn't just take relationships," she said. "He takes identities, finances, futures." I looked down at my name again, printed, copied, used. "And when it all collapses?" I asked quietly. Lena's voice didn't change. "It won't collapse on him." She stepped closer, her gaze steady. "It'll collapse on you, Ethan." And in that moment, I finally understood how deep this really went. "And when it all collapses?" I asked quietly. Lena's voice didn't change. "It won't collapse on him," she said. "It'll collapse on you, Ethan." The words settled heavily in the air. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at my name printed across documents I had never seen before. Accounts I never opened, signatures I never gave, decisions I never made. "This is insane," I muttered. "I didn't do any of this." "I know," Lena replied calmly. "But on paper, you did." I ran a hand over my face, trying to think clearly. "So what?" "He just builds all of this and walks away." "Not just walks away," she said. "He disappears clean." I looked at her. "And leaves me with everything." She nodded once. Silence followed. Then Lena moved again, precise, controlled. She walked to a small metal drawer tucked beneath the table and pulled it open. "There's more," she said. From inside, she took out a phone. Not hers. Not mine. It was older, plain, almost forgettable. The kind of device you wouldn't look at twice. It's his burner, she explained. I cloned it before I left. My chest tightened slightly. You already knew all of this. I knew enough, she said. Not everything. Not until now. She powered the phone on. For a second, nothing happened. Then the screen lit up, and messages began to load. Texts. Images. Notes. Voice recordings. A whole hidden layer of communication. Look, she said, handing it to me. I scrolled slowly at first, then faster. Conversations between Victor and Clara. My stomach twisted. They weren't just involved. They were coordinated. Every move planned. Every step calculated. Then something caught my eye. A voice memo. Labeled, Ethan Phase 4. My hand froze. What is this? I asked. Lena didn't answer. She just nodded toward the screen. Play it. I hesitated for half a second. Then I pressed it. The audio crackled slightly before a voice came through. Clara's voice. Flat. Controlled. Almost emotionless. Once Lena cracks, he'll follow, she said. Play the apology. Suggest closure. Keep him feeling like a man. My grip tightened on the phone. Once he's remarried, she continued, we dissolve his remaining credit line and use his name to apply for the estate accounts. His identity is clean, uncontested, perfect shell. The recording ended. Silence filled the room again, but this time, it felt suffocating. The phone slipped slightly in my hand. I couldn't even finish the sentence. Your ex-wife, Lena said quietly. I looked at her, disbelief and anger mixing into something sharper. She was never in love with you, Ethan, Lena added. She was working with him. The words hit harder than anything else so far. Not the fraud. Not the setup. I let out a slow breath, trying to steady myself. So I was just, what? A target. Yes, Lena said. No hesitation. No softness. Just truth. I looked back at the files. At the phone. At everything laid out in front of me. Then why me? I asked finally. Why marry me? For the first time since I met her. Lena hesitated. Just slightly. Then she stepped closer, her voice quieter now, but still steady. Because, she said, the only way to trap people who fake everything, she met my eyes, is to become something they believe is real. I stared at her. A distraction? I asked. She shook her head. A trigger, she corrected. And suddenly, this wasn't just about exposing them anymore. It was about setting a trap. A trigger, Lena said. The word lingered in the air, sharp and precise. I stared at her, trying to understand just how far this plan went. So this whole thing, marrying me, that was just part of setting them up. Yes, she replied. No hesitation. No apology. Just the truth. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. And what happens when they take the bait? Lena leaned against the table slightly, her arms crossing as she thought. They'll try to clean everything up, she said. That's what people like Victor do. When something unpredictable happens, they don't run, they fix it. And that's when they slip, I said, remembering her earlier words. She nodded. Exactly. I looked down at the phone still in my hand, then back at the files spread across the table. So what's the move? For the first time, something shifted in her expression, not emotion exactly, but focus sharpening into action. We don't go to the police yet, she said. Why not? I asked. We already have enough to, no, she cut in. We have enough to interest them. Not enough to lock everything down. I frowned. So we wait. We prepare, she corrected. That night, we didn't go back to my apartment. Instead, we drove 2 hours outside the city to a roadside motel that looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. Faded paint. Flickering sign. The kind of place no one asks questions. Inside the room, the air smelled faintly of old carpet and cleaning chemicals. Lena sat up at the small table with her laptop, while I sat on the edge of the bed, still trying to process everything. Come here, she said after a few minutes. I stood and walked over. On the screen were documents, dozens of them. Organized, labeled, cross-referenced. You need to see how deep this goes, she said. She opened the first file. 3 aliases, she began. Victor uses different identities depending on the target. She clicked again. 2 shell companies. Both registered under fake directors, but funded through accounts tied to you. My chest tightened. That's impossible, I said. She shook her head. Not when they have access to your identity. Another click. A non-profit organization, she continued. Registered under Clara's name. I leaned closer. And look here. She pointed to a section of the document. My name. Listed as a board member. I've never even heard of this, I said. I know, Lena replied. But legally, it exists. I stepped back, running both hands through my hair. This is insane. He's building an exit plan, she said calmly. I looked at her. Explain. Fake bankruptcy, she said. When everything collapses, it'll look like you were running all of this. Fraud, mismanagement, financial crimes. He disappears clean, and you take the fall. The room felt smaller again. How long have you known? I asked. She paused for a moment. Since before you did, she said. But you were the only one they legally tied everything to. I frowned. Why me? Because you were perfect, she said. Stable history. Clean records. No red flags. I let out a bitter laugh. So that's my mistake. Being normal. Yes, she said simply. Silence filled the room again. My eyes drifted to the marriage certificate sitting on the table beside her laptop. Our names printed side by side. This wedding, I started. Gave me leverage, she finished. I looked at her. Leverage for what? For what comes next. She closed the laptop slowly, then finally looked at me, really looked this time. But I'm not like them, Ethan, she said. There was something different in her tone now. Not soft. Not cold. Just honest. I'm not after your name, she added. I studied her carefully. Then what are you after? She folded her hands together, her gaze steady. Justice. She stood, walked toward the door, then paused. And if we do this right, she said quietly, we end it in a way they'll never see coming. And for the first time, I wasn't just scared anymore. I was ready. The plan wasn't simple, but it was sharp. Lena and I didn't just go after Victor and Clara blindly. We documented everything, every account, every transaction, every forged signature, every time-stamped message. We built a case so airtight it couldn't be ignored. Your real estate flips. Lena said, pointing to one spreadsheet. Now tied to me, through a shadow company offshore, using your social security number. That's just the beginning. I swallowed hard. So all of this, everything I thought was mine, is already part of their scheme. Yes, she said, tapping the laptop. But now it's in our hands. We waited. Patience became our weapon. Every day felt like being underwater, pressure building from every side, silent, dense, relentless. Yet Lena thrived in it. I watched her move with a precision that made my own planning feel clumsy. She had memorized the rhythm of deception, and now she was leading me through it. Then it happened. One morning, Lena turned her laptop toward me. Transactions were being moved. Assets transferred. My name had been used to purchase a $3.2 million villa in Montenegro. I'd never even been to Montenegro. Wire fraud. Identity theft. Interstate conspiracy, I muttered. Lena smiled. Now you're speaking my language. I made the call, not to the police, but to a federal investigator Lena had quietly coordinated with. A woman who had once tried to open a case against Victor, only to be shut down by powerful interference. But this time, we had leverage. We handed over everything. Every file, every proof, every trail. 3 hours later, the investigator said, "We've been waiting for someone like you." The next morning, Clara sent one last email. No greeting. Just, "You shouldn't have married her." I stared at it, then typed back simply, "That's exactly why I did." The arrests were quiet. No sirens. No spectacle. Just a knock at Victor's door during brunch. A sealed indictment with 23 counts, wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, obstruction. He was taken first. Clara was harder to pin down. She'd always been the quieter operator, the one who ran the paper trails. But Lena had found it all, the forged signatures, the fake non-profit grants, the offshore orders, the messages between her and Victor. "They are too soft to fight back," Lena had said. But she was wrong. This time, they didn't. By the end of the week, the indictment went public. Lena and I stood on the courthouse steps, not for press, not for revenge, but because we'd been subpoenaed as witnesses. As we left, she turned to me. "You know, I wasn't sure this would work." "What changed your mind?" I asked. "You didn't," she said. "You kept showing up. We never had a honeymoon. No first dance. No shared last name on a mailbox. No champagne toast. Our marriage was a mission that ended quietly but completely. 6 weeks later, we signed annulment papers. Mutually. Respectfully. No drama. And yet, on that day, I hesitated. Not because I wanted it to last, but because I realized something rare. I had never felt more understood by anyone than by the woman who had helped me dismantle the person I once loved. I still think about Montenegro. The villa that never existed. I looked it up online. It was beautiful. We stood there on the courthouse steps, where our fake marriage began, and for a moment, it almost felt real. "Ever think about doing something real?" I asked her. She nodded once. "I do," she said. And just like that, we parted. No kiss. No promises. No goodbye. But for the first time in months, I felt free. Not from betrayal. Not from loss. But from the weight of lies. And finally, from fear.